So I've got a little challenge for you. What am I thinking? Go on, what am I thinking about? It's impossible to know, isn't it? Actually, what I'm thinking about is when I'm going to get the next opportunity to go for a huge long ramble on Cannock Chase in the sun and enjoy the outdoors and see the deer and have fun with the boys out in the open. That's what I was thinking about. You cannot know someone's mind until you've heard their words. Just want you to remember that for a moment. You cannot know someone's mind until you've heard their words. We're on this journey that Dr. Luke, this great spiritual PI, this Sherlock Holmes, uncovering the truths of Jesus because he wants us to be certain. He wants his friend Theo to be certain he can have confidence in Jesus. And what Luke told us he did was he began at the beginning, investigated from the very start. And there's no better start than pregnancy, is there? So this opening chapter of Luke's account begins with these two parallel pregnancies, Elizabeth and Mary. We've had a little explore already of Elizabeth, the beginning of her pregnancy, and now he tells us how it began with Mary. He's found Mary. She's now an old lady, a grandma, and he's interviewed her about those early days. She was just a teenager, but they're crystal clear in her mind. And Mary told Luke about this incredible moment when an angel, a messenger from God, appeared and outrageously said to her, "You're going to have a baby." And not just have a baby as a young woman who'd never had sex, but actually have the baby who was going to be God himself. Mary's first response, where this is chapter 1, sentence 29, Mary says that she was greatly troubled at these words and wondered what kind of greeting that was. I can just imagine Luke sitting across from old wrinkly Mary and Mary recounting herself, a 14-year-old, going, "I was greatly troubled." I think she was terrified. The angel then explains a little bit more, but it doesn't get much clearer for Mary. It says by sentence 34, Mary says, "How will this be?" How can this possibly be? She's gone from troubled to just confused, even disbelieving. But then by sentence 38, Mary's able to say to this angel, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word be fulfilled." Now, isn't that an amazing transition? From troubled to confused, to trusting, Now, what made that transition in Mary? What makes that transition in us? Whether we're a Christian, not yet a Christian, whatever our sense of who Jesus is, to go from troubled, confused, to suddenly trusting. Not having all the answers, but trusting. And we find the answer in the sentence before. Because the angel says to Mary, "For no word from God will ever fail." That's the transition. No word from God will ever fail. The angel's just recounted all these Old Testament promises, all these things that God has said. He's just reminded Mary of them all, and no word will ever fail from God. And that changes Mary's sense of confusion and of being troubled into a sense of trusting. The application for us, you see, is how do we know the mind of God? Only when we hear the words of God. Remember my silly challenge? What am I thinking? You can't know what even I am thinking until you hear my words. We cannot know what God is thinking, what his plans, what his purposes are, until we hear his word. Mary needed to hear the great promises of God recited again, reminded in her heart and her mind. And though they don't explain everything, though she doesn't have all the answers, though the roadmap is not clearly in front of her, and certainly her life is not going to be easy, by hearing those words from God, she can move from confused and troubled to trusting. So I want to urge you, wherever you are, whether you're a Christian, not yet a Christian, wherever you might be on a spiritual scale, whether you associate with Mary or not at all, I just want to tell you again, it's God's word that does God's work by God's Spirit. It's in God's word, the Bible, that we find God's mind and start to trust him even when we can't understand exactly what he is doing. Be like Mary. Realize that no word from God will ever fail, and take your trouble and your confusion and turn it into trust.